Talking about the Petroleum Products Pricing Regulatory Agency, which has come out to clear the air on the recent publication stating that the price cap per litre in respect of petroleum motor spirit is removed and that market-based pricing regime for petrol has taken effect. In a press release, the agency says it does not confer on marketers the power to fix prices for the products as they deem fit, but rather guiding prices would be advised by the PPPRA according to market realities. Well, joining us now to make sense of this regulation is the chairman of the Society of Petroleum Engineers, Nigerian Council, Mr. Joseph Nwakwue. Good morning and thanks for coming on the program.
Thank you, Bisi. How are you?
Very well. Now, although the PPPRA has now cleared the air on its role in terms of pricing of petrol, but what do you understand by the details of the policy document, specifically when we talk about the Section 3, Subsection 2 of the document, which addresses the removal of a price cap on PMS?
Well, clearly the intention, from what I see, is the restoration of the pricing template that we had in 2016. Basically, what they intend to do is to eliminate subsidies, but not completely stop price fixing. I don't know if you get the difference. So clearly, if you read the regulation that was released in March, the PPPRA regulation, basically, price fixing is still the deal. However, they will fix that price at a level that enables them to fully recover cost. So if they do that, clearly, you don't have a subsidy, but the market pricing is set by government. That's what really I understand that to mean. So we're not quite at a fully deregulated market, if you look at that.
And so what does this mean for the marketers?
Well, what it means is it has two implications. One is the fact that they will continue to depend on an NPC for products. I do not see that they can go and import products, given that PPPRA will still fix the prices, right? So if they run any loss doing that, they will have no means to recover the difference, which is the subsidy element. So I reckon that most of them will say, well, let's wait for NNPC to bring products, we'll take it from the depot, and we sell, make whatever margin there is. So we are still stuck in this single supply situation. So that's a major problem.
The ensuing media statement, of course, further explains that the published regulation does not confer on marketers the power to fix prices for petrol, but that the PPPRA will continue to advise according to market realities. But what does the law that's talking about the Petroleum Act, the Price of Control Act, as well as the PPPRA Act say about the oversight functions of the agency when we talk about petrol price?
Well, the regime, the legal framework today is that the PA and the Price Control Act clearly give the minister, in this case, the Minister of Petroleum, as far as the Petroleum Act goes, has the duty, the responsibility to fix prices, while the Price Control Act actually puts that in the Minister for Commerce, or whatever that question is. So really, looking at the laws, we still have a situation where it is the duty of government to fix prices of products, petroleum products generally. So if we need to reform that system, there has to be some legislative activity around cleaning up our books, making sure that those provisions are not there, that allows a minister to fix a price for a product, whether it's even kerosene and all the other ones that has been deregulated. If you strictly go by the law, the government should still continue to fix prices for those products. I don't remember what happened to the case. I think there was a case in 2013, 2014 by some lawyer, basically asking the court, and I think a federal high court said that the government could not deregulate because it was a legal obligation. But I don't know what happened. I understand there was an appeal. I don't know how it ended. But I think the important thing is that if we want to reform this sector, we need to have a holistic view of a situation where only one entity supplies the market. That's a problem. Fixing the price, that's a problem. So there are components of this that we need to take and look at before we come up with this, a reform solution that will enable the market to grow. Because if you think about it, a country this size, there's a lot of potential for the downstream, and we're not realizing it at all.
So if you're talking about solutions now, what are some of the solutions that you would prefer?
Okay, so if you're thinking about solutions, everywhere else, the midstream is built from people who developed scale in the downstream. And when I talk about it, I'm talking about transportation, refining, processing. We don't have a lot of midstream players. It tells you that the downstream has not been successful. Because if people are successful in the downstream, they scale up to the midstream and up to the upstream. So that's the natural progression that we haven't quite seen in Nigeria because of the framework we have. So there are a lot of opportunities in refining. There are a lot of opportunities in gas processing. There are a lot of opportunities that we just are not taking advantage of because we haven't built sufficient enough capabilities in the downstream. I mean, a couple of years back, you knew the downstream companies were fairly strong. Now they're all just out there. Not a whole lot is happening in that space. So it says a lot about the framework, the market framework that we have. So the structure of the market is a problem. Pricing is a problem. So there are a lot of issues. Infrastructure is a problem. So there are quite a few areas that we need to reform.
So this issue now actually brings me to talking about the timing now. Do you think that this could have come at a better time, or is this the right time for this?
The right time was yesterday. So yes, today, for a couple of reasons. One, prices are actually low at this point. So there are no real differences in, so this is a good time in terms of the pricing. In terms of when we needed it 10 years ago, we should have done this. So I think it's in the right direction to deregulate the market. I think that removal of subsidy is necessary, but it's not sufficient. Okay, I think we need to go the whole hog. We need to completely reform the sector for growth. That's the way I would. So removing subsidy could be the first step in doing that, but it is necessary that we move beyond just removing subsidy. Because if you remove subsidy through a modulation scheme, it's still price fixing, right? You're not going to be able to attract the private capital that you need to drive that growth. And government doesn't have the resources to fund that sector today. So if our objective is to grow a bigger pie, to grow that sector, we really need to step back and say, well, we're going to need private capital to do that. And a major precondition for that is that you remove all of these impediments. Price fixing is one of them.
All right, now, does the petroleum industry bill have any possible solutions for the full deregulation of the downstream? Because, of course, we understand that the NNPC GMD, that's Mr. Melekiari, once said that the PIB wasn't necessary to actually achieve deregulation.
Well, I haven't seen that comment, but what I can say is that there are opportunities here for alignment. So the PIB, the way it was always thought of, was to open up the sector, and that's upstream, midstream, and downstream. So there might be elements of that whole thing that will impact on whether you're in a deregulated market or not. For instance, let's look at the PIGB, which was the institutional framework. The attempt has always been to streamline the number of institutions in that sector. I mean, we have PEF, we have PPPRA. All of these institutions where PPPRA, for instance, was set up for a sole purpose, fixed prices. So if you're in a deregulated market, then that institution has to either go or be transformed to something else. You couldn't have PPPRA fixing prices in a deregulated market. You couldn't have equalization the way we think about it today, which is price equalization, in a fully deregulated market. So it's always something that, so there are components of the reform process, which is what you call the PIGB, that will necessarily mean that things will be done differently. And that's why I think that alignment is necessary. We need to have, we are being forced, the timing is being forced today because of the low prices we see. But I would have preferred a situation where the reform bills have been looked at alongside this process so that we establish the synergies. Because right now, those institutions we either have to disband or find other purposes for them, right? Because that would not work in a fully deregulated market. You can't have PPPRA. So those are the kind of things that needs to happen. And the governance bill would have dealt with that. So that's where the PIB comes into this.
You've talked about synergy now, but what are some of the other economic realities that could be preventing the federal government from granting total deregulation to the downstream?
Economic realities. It's kind of, okay, you and I mean, we've been here. We were here when we moved from 97 or thereabout to 145. So the notion was that people were going to die, right? Well, I don't remember that anyone died. So my sense is that it's more political than economic. I think that the Nigerians are better served economically when there is efficiency in that space. I think what we've been doing over the years has not worked for us economically. It has served certain political interests, I would say, but I think that I, as a person, I see the losses. I could count my losses from the government taking this route. I think that Nigerians will be better served, and I mean that economically, if we have a fully deregulated market.
With this policy statement now, would there be any legal basis for which marketers may actually proceed to import petrol without consequences possibly occasioned by a sudden reversal of a policy, for instance?
Well, that's why I think it needs to be done properly. If there are laws that say that price fixing is the rule of the game, we need to get the legislature involved and make sure that those laws are changed. Because remember, there's a political time clock that's ticking away, right? How politicians react influences a whole lot of things. So if we do things without dotting all the I's and crossing the T's, you might see reversals in 2023 when people start using it as a political issue, because this is a hot burner issue politically, right? So we need to make sure that whatever changes are done properly so that they are sustainable in the long term.
But what if we begin to see the prices actually go up? What would you
Crude
expect?
prices.
What would you expect the PPPRA, or how would you expect them to actually manage the situation?
If crude prices go up, of course the guiding price will go up, which is what they call it, right? The guiding price will go up. The problem with that, though, is that it's very complicated, because on a month-on-month basis, you're revising prices, and people don't empty their tanks every month. So you're going to have challenges administering this scheme the way it's being thought of. There are issues that the guidelines I've seen do not quite address all the issues. So I think they need to communicate a lot better what their real intentions are, if you ask me. But I think that we should fix our eyes at the real goal, which is to fully get out of price fixing.
Talking about the PPPRA's role of course, advising the NNPC and oil marketers on indicative market price now, but the big question has actually always been the rates of compliance by marketers. Of course, what do we know about the monitoring and enforcement of these prices?
Okay, so that's why, again, I like market-based solutions, right? When you do things that require too much monitoring and enforcement. How many people we have probably more than 8,000 filling stations in the country, right? So how many people do you have working in the enforcement arm to police this? So if you had a market-based solution, it relieves you of that obligation to keep running around trying to check who is doing that. So regulation should be a bit more about quality and service quality, right? Rather than just pricing, price fixing and all that. So my sense is, if you look at the history, go to Bureau of Statistics database, look at the prices. They publish prices by state in the last 3-4 years. I've plotted it. It's only 3 places that you go and prices are based on whatever. It's Abuja, it's Lagos, and some parts of Port Harcourt. Everywhere else in this country, the prices are not being honored. So we shouldn't continue to deceive ourselves.
All right, we need to wrap up this conversation very quickly. So in just about 30 seconds, tell us, if Nigeria was to fully deregulate now, what would be the right price of petrol today?
I haven't seen what the template looks like. The last template I saw was in March. Again, so it's easy to determine what that is. My sense is that it will be under 100 at current prices. Remember, when crude prices go up, those things will go up. The thing that should bother us really are the other components of that template, right? There is the 8%, which is other charges, right, included in the landing. And there's the other bit, another, say, 16 to 17%, that is distributor. So I think there is quite a few items there that I consider inefficient, right? So the question is, are we really paying the real economic cost of this? And that's why I think a market-based solution, markets work. When you go that route, it relieves, and then forces of demand and supply will drive these things. So I think that today in that template, there's a lot of fat that can be cut off. That's my sense. So yes, if we deregulated today, prices hopefully should come down. But again, in the near term, they will go up until you get the supply side, because there are two components to this. There's the demand side, which we know exists. There's the supply side. The supply side today is mono source. We need to move away from that to get the full benefits of the regulation. So there's quite a bit of work to be done there.
All right, Chairman of the Society of Petroleum Engineers, Nigerian Council, Mr. Joseph Nwakwue, thanks for coming on Business Morning.
Thank you very much.